Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Danger Ranger podcast. This is technically episode number 28. Episode 27 was recorded live in studio on Zoom last Friday with Shoemate and Joe. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. It's kind of long. It's 3.5 hours. We're on there bullshitting for a significant amount of time. There's some funny stories in there though, for sure. It's called After Dark for a reason, so just don't be alarmed at the interesting stories that get told on that one. That was a good time. We're going to do it again very soon. Hopefully towards the end of this month. If not, it'll be early May when we come back live, answer all your questions, talk shit, hang out, drink a little bit. It's a good time. So, short episode of the podcast today because that one was 3.5 hours, and go watch it if you haven't, like I said. But we're just going to talk, just off the top of my head today about whatever I want, because that's what you can do when you have a podcast. So, first things first, I'm getting into UFC. Really, I kind of liked it before. I didn't really know a whole lot about like the fighters. I understand MMA and whatnot, but just recently getting into it, probably within the past month or so. And man, that shit is interesting. And it makes me wish that I had grown up wrestling, because I totally could have seen myself, instead of going into the army, assuming that I had the base in the background with wrestling and maybe, boxing or something growing up, then I would have potentially tried to, go into the MMA world. But alas, a little old for that. Don't really want to get rocked. So not to preclude me from, I'm looking at going to Muay Thai and maybe Jiu-Jitsu as well, just to keep the sword sharp, as it were. I've done a little bit of jiu-jitsu in the past. I've maybe been to like 10 classes total. Not good at all by any stretch. 10 classes is negligible in the world of jiu-jitsu, but learned a little bit. I know enough to kind of point things out in fights, and it's like, oh, okay, that guy's doing that. Oh, he's trying to go for that submission, whatever. But really, yeah, like I said, just getting into that UFC world. And we watched the fights. I was with some buddies, and we watched the UFC 287, and that was a stacked card, all of top to bottom. We'll talk about the co-main event and the main event, Jorge and Burns. I wanted my boy Jorge to win. I wanted him to win in Miami because that shit would have been sick. However, Burns, I looking at the fight between Burns and Chimaev, Khamzat Chimaev, I was like, I don't think that that Masvidal would be able to beat Chimaev. Therefore, he's going to have a hard time beating a guy who went 3 rounds against Chimaev, and in almost won. I would say the Gilbert Burns Chimaev fight, like, it could have gone. It was very close to going Burns' way, honestly, and that was the first time that we've seen Chimaev really challenged in the octagon. He's probably going to be one of my favorite fighters, just because he's a psycho. And we'll talk about Chechens in a little bit here. Then we'll talk main card, though. I honestly didn't expect Izzy to pull that off. Like, go check out the freaking the highlights from 287 if you haven't already. You've probably seen reels of it all over Instagram. But I was really worried for Adesanya. Like, the dude's beaten him 3 times. Granted, one of the kickboxing bouts was really close, and then his first MMA fight in the UFC with Pereira, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It was going his way up until the 5th round too. So it was like, but still, like, just having to fight through that mental backlog of defeat against just one guy. I was like, man, that's got to be tough. And I know Izzy's a champion, but it's like, dude, that can't be easy to work through and to psych yourself up to do. I didn't really watch any of his training camp, but I did hear that it was pretty intense. And then he put on a great show and lured him in. You can watch and you can see Izzy trying to lure Alex in several times, at least during the 2nd round, into the corner off the ropes. And then he finally got him to take the bait. And that's when he possumed up a little bit, took a knee to the face, took some hands, but he saw his opening, and he swung for the fences, and he freaking got it. It didn't even look like a big hit. The first hit that took Pereira out, or stunned him a bit, and it was the subsequent hit in the exact same spot, right to the left temple, that got him. And then his speech in the press conference in the octagon, or his speech in the octagon and then the press conference after were really good to watch. Like, he was like, man, y'all doubted me. And I was like, yeah, I was one of those guys, dude. Like, I was like, man, it's going to be a good fight, but I want you to pull it out, but like, we'll see. And Alex is gigantic. Like, I think that he walks around like 225 naturally, and he cuts all the way down to 185. Not sure if that's the exact numbers, but he sits significantly heavier than Adesanya, as well as the fact that Adesanya is like 6'4", and Alex is taller than him. I think he's like 6'5" or something. I'm talking out of my ass right now, so I'm gonna Google it. Let me find his stats real quick. Okay, so he's also 6'4", and then let me find Izzy's height here. So so they're both 6'4". They're both just big dudes. Like, they don't look too big, but they are. But that was a stunning fight. I loved it. It was great. Going back to Khamzat Chimaev, he called out Izzy immediately, pretty much, on Twitter, and is like, "Hey, let's make it happen." Which I think that fight is going to be. I don't think he's going to get it right away. I think they're gonna put Khamzat against someone else, but he is going to have to fight Izzy at some point at middleweight at 185, which is what I'm pretty sure that Chimaev has moved to 185 because he kept missing weight at the whatever the weight class is below. I should know this stuff before I start talking out my ass, but I think he's welterweight is the next lowest weight class. But I digress. So Chechens specifically as well. I mean, you want to talk Khabib too. I mean, Chechnya is very close to Dagestan in Russia. They're very, very similar regions. I want to say Chechnya is a little bit north of Dagestan. I'm not sure. The one thing I am sure of, though, is that their primary export is fucking fighters. That is the only notable export that country has, is fucking warriors. You have Chechens fighting, I'm pretty sure, on both sides of the Ukrainian conflict currently. And then you had obviously the Chechens in Afghanistan at the beginning, and I was hearing stories of dudes finding Chechens on target still in 2020, like maybe not 2020 because there wasn't a whole lot going on, but like 2019, around that time frame, I was hearing stories of Chechens still being found on targets that Ranger would have hit, which is fucking wild. Like, those guys, that's like all they do. That's all they do is fight, you know? And it's not surprising that we're starting to see a lot of really good fighters come out of that region. Looking at Khamzat's, I think, 12-0. Let me Google it. Let me see. 12-0 in his professional record, which is pretty good. I mean, it's still a little early to say, that he's the best, because he's still got a lot of legitimate dudes to run through and to fight before, we can start talking about him on the level that we want to talk about Khabib Nurmagomedov. But that whole region, wrestling, and then you throw in elite level striking, like, the dude's a freaking animal. Like, go watch some of his highlights if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you haven't seen him fight. The dude ragdolls dudes in the freaking cage. Like, he'll pick them up and carry them across the cage to his corner just to do it, just to be in his corner. And the dude is they just sit there flailing, like they can't get out of it. It's crazy. And just his mindset, I kill everybody, I'm coming for everybody, Allahu Akbar. Like, dude's a fucking scary guy, and I'm excited to see what his next fight will be. I'm really sad that he missed weight for the Diaz fight, because I feel like the Diaz fight would have been very interesting to watch, because Nate Diaz is a fucking tough motherfucker too, and he can just keep taking shots. Not the greatest wrestler from what I've seen, but I feel like Khamzat would have probably ragdolled him as well. But maybe we'll get to see that one day. So moving forward with the channel, we're coming towards kind of the end of our Lethality series. Like, I've made about 15, I think, episodes of that, and we're coming down to like the last few before I really have to start racking my brains for topics to continue that. So we just did the individual Ranger discipline, another great video, just general knowledge video for really anyone. who carries a firearm or does any kind of this shit for a living or for fun, or is responsible for their family or community safety, I would definitely go take a look at that. There's a lot of really good, like, it's like the little basic shit that you don't really get taught. Like, you don't get sat down in a class and taught, hey, this is what you do here before the mission, this is all the little things you got to do. It's something that you kind of pick up over time. You kind of learn like on the go. So this video is really going to jumpstart that process, and it's going to make you start thinking about like being ready and the kind of things you need to be thinking about as an individual to be an effective member of a larger team. So go check that one out as well. We have the Classic Ranger School raid class yet to do, and then I want to say that's potentially it. I've mentioned doing like an actual like compass class, like with a physical compass, kind of explaining how to use that. But like I said, we're coming close to the end of Lethality. We could do, I'll probably throw in some Battle Drill 6, Enter and Clear a Room. And then there are the larger battle drills as well, such as Enter and Clear a Trench, Platoon Attack, stuff like that we could probably stretch the series out probably by another month or two. So I just got to sit and brainstorm. So if you have any ideas for me, write them down in the comments below, and I'll make sure that we hit those. But I think we're going to keep this one short and sweet. I have a leadership video that I'm going to be putting up probably tomorrow or Thursday night. And then our Lethality video will probably be part 1 of Raid. We might be able to fit Raid into just one class. So that's what we're looking at. And then there's been a lot of requests for other MOSs to come on the podcast. I need to start reaching out to my guys. I keep forgetting to do it in time before the next week starts. But I do have Fister buddies. I have Sniper buddies. I have some dog handler guys. And then I have medic. There's at least one medic that comes to mind that would probably be willing to hop on the podcast as well. But yeah, let me know what kind of content you want to see from me. I'm doing my own brainstorming on my side. But if there's something that you really want to see me talk about or cover that I haven't covered yet, drop it down below, and I'll take care of it. But that's gonna be it for today. I'll catch you all sometime this week, whether that be tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday. But at least on Friday, our first episode or first part of Raid. Potentially the whole thing will be out, and I will see you all then. Take care.